Okay, greetings and welcome to another Pan-African Community News. It's the 24th of April, 2022. You'll be joining us pretty soon. As usual, if you can give us a mic check, that would always be good before I start. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, mic check, mic check. We should be live over Facebook and YouTube. So as soon as Orlando joins us, she'll be able to monitor and send all the comments and blah, 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 kind of rubbish with all that sort of stuff. But mic check, and I'm going to start the program. It's quite a jam-packed one. Again, we tend to have a lot of stories that creep up within the 2 weeks between each of the broadcasts. I still haven't got a system to work out which ones we're going to have to not add and which ones we kind of push forward to. But let me get started, and let's go to the first story, which is that of what's our answer. PM, there was a commemorative event outside Brixton. It's 1 year anniversary since the memorial that was set up by the council and their J architects team was placed in Brixton. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, and hopefully it was well attended, and we'll be hearing back from some of the people who were there. And for those of you who don't know, our elder or beloved ancestor now, Darfie Gross, was shot in 1985 by police officers in her house. They were doing a search for her son, who they thought had a weapon. He didn't, and they paralyzed her. So for 26 years, she lived in she was paralyzed. She was in a wheelchair. She's now an ancestor. And I think it took something like 20 years before the police actually thought to apologize for what they did. So yeah. Opened. It was done online, I think, because it was during lockdown. And I just wanted to put that out there, that we remember, and the shooting of Che Gross also should be noted, because it was one of the sparks that led to the Brixton uprisings in 1985. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to go to the section now, which we call community news. Just as a reminder, if there are any passings or any any names you want to remember in the opening session of this program, please feel free to email it to us. You can send it to toyin@legali.org, and so we can include them. It's one of the things that I'm always annoyed of as an African in the UK, that we don't really seem to commemorate those who pass in our community. We kind of, when we're back at home, whether it's on the motherland or in the Caribbean and diaspora, we do radio perhaps where we would kind of like let the community know when someone has passed and joined the ancestors. We don't seem to have that network here. I should also say, I think I spoke in the last 2 weeks ago that the wife of Brother Kinde passed away, and she I think has been put to rest this week in Birmingham. So it's just little things that kind of like glue the community together that's missing, I think, from the infrastructure that we have. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to go on with the next news story, and that is the one of the National Education Unit. This is a teachers union who passed a no police in schools motion this week. And it was quite, I don't want to say revolutionary, because it started off quite revolutionary. In the image, you can see a picture of the President, Daniel Kabede. He condemned the increase in schools. He also makes a point that actually those who, are worried about drug use, kind of like in spaces where it shouldn't be, should also be checking out Westminster, because there was a recent report where they found Class A drugs in Westminster. The investigation has been stalled, it's been buried. What's happening with that? That's kind of issue, let alone strip searching young children. So anyway, the National Union's motion was really about no police in schools. It passed. I'm getting conflicted issues about how solid it is, which is the reason why you don't see me jumping up for joy. Some people are saying that actually it's opened a debate about this as opposed to being a firm resolution. But one of the things that is definitely clear is that people at the people who are there are talking about what took place. And the teachers, especially in Hackney, are saying that we do not want police in this and ever evolving discussion. There is also, I mean, the logo from No Police in Schools is actually for a movement inside Manchester. So it's not just isolated in London. This is something that goes across the UK, and we have similar movements with our cousins in the Americas. So yeah, that's that particular story. I think Sister Oleander is about to join us.
Yes, greetings.
That doesn't sound too healthy.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, yes, we've just got a message from Perry saying that he can hear us loud and clear. So that's great.
Thank you, Brother Perry. It's nice to have the mic check. One of the strange things I'm trying to get used to with this, that sometimes we feel like we're just talking to ourselves, and you have no idea whether it's. So let me continue on with the news updates. So I just spoke about the NEU passing this motion about no police in schools, but unfortunately, and this is always seems to be the case with these larger bodies as well. A couple of days later, I learned about an open letter being sent out to the NEU and its governing body, those in charge of it. And you can see Kevin Courtney, who's the head of the National Education Union, about the institutional racism within its ranks. And in this particular case, I have read the letter, but I'm not familiar with all the politics. There was, I think it's Camille Kumar, an Asian teacher who seems to have been pushed out of the NEU. I'm not sure, I'm not sure the exact politics of this. But, this letter talks about African and Asian educators being labelled as aggressive, for kind of like using the fist as a the power fist as a kind of like symbol to rally around, and all various issue. Disappointing to think that the same union that just passed a motion to actually move forward on no police in schools is actually still itself rife with institutional racism. But this letter is actually online, Collective Union Concerns. You should be able to find it and have a quick read of it itself. Like I said, I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs of what's happened to this Camille Kumar who was pushed out, but it doesn't sound very savory. So I just wanted to kind of like, just so we're under no disillusion about the fact that even though an organization, a movement can do something progressive, it still has its own housekeeping to take care of. And if I move to the next slide, that's going to be the story of, so let me click that. That's going to be the story of the youth organization Forefront, who have launched a campaign to end strip search. Now, this is an American and always when addressing issues to do with stop and search. But they've written a piece for Galdem, the online magazine, and just said that actually we really, it's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to kind of working out how many organizations, how many people, young people have been strip searched and traumatized by this. And so they're just saying that we just need to stop it completely as a practice. And this is again one of the stories that you don't really hear much about. This campaign is ongoing, and I thought I'd just share it with you so you knew what was taking place at a grassroots level. If you want to know on the opposite scale of what's taking place at a national government level, well, some whistleblowers have revealed that MITI, who is one of these contractors that the Home Office uses to deport people from the country. Well, they've just blown the news on the fact that they've been sex work into this. But I mean, from what I can gather from the report, it's possible that actually some of the people that they're paying might be the very same people that they're reporting. Like I said, the investigation is going to start, so we're going to have some more information, but it is quite murky. The Home Office won't comment because obviously they don't like whistleblowers, but there does seem to be a compelling argument, and there's something of substance here. The duration of 10 years to find that Home Office contractors are basically paying for sex while they're deporting people. If they're exploiting vulnerable people, it's news. Something that you just need to be aware of. And I talk about the Home Office because the biggest story that most of you might have seen in the media recently is that of the 120 million scheme to send them back to Rwanda. In many ways has been described, and correctly so, as an act of colonial violence. Now, what's happened is that the British government, as Priti Patel, has actually met with Paul Kagame, and they've actually, basically paid them off to resettle failed applications, in Rwanda. Now, I say everyone, but those of us who kind of like see what's going on over here can recognize that when they're talking about deporting people who have failed the resettlement application in the UK to Rwanda, they're not talking about Europeans or Ukrainians, for example. They tend to be talking about African people from minority ethnic communities in the UK. So it could be Asian people. This whole scheme is not only is it immoral, but it's also, it's just wrong on so many different levels. I mean, I don't normally use religious rhetoric, but even the Archbishop, church leader, says that this is opposite. This is an ungodly act. It's opposite of the nature of God. And what's happened is that politicians are now coming out to challenge the Archbishop. And that's a really bizarre thing when you have literally politicians condemning the Archbishop for providing moral and spiritual guidance because their scheme is unethical. But this is what's taking place. It's a great distraction. If we had the time, we'll talk about how it's moving the discussion, or it's used to move discussion away from what they call Partygate, which is actually not just about parties. It's about qualities and standards in public life, and the fact that the British Prime Minister not only has received a fine, but has continuously lied in Parliament and has continuously set such low moral standards in government that those under his watch feel that they can just do what they want without any regard to law and order and due process. So anyway, this is one of the people who are opposed to migrants. Yeah, so I mean, you are, I guess. Oh, Sister Oleander, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah,
I think you're muted.
We have a comment from Perry on the screen.
Okay. And it says, sorry, okay, let me.
I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it? Yeah, sorry. Kagame has a history of dirty and dubious dealings against the interests of African people and in the advance of Western interests, so we should not be surprised.
Unfortunately, that's correct. I mean, it's very strange because in many ways, he has moved Rwanda in progressive ways when it comes down to kind of like trying to tighten up their economy and trying to get them moving in the right direction away from path set. And what's happened now is like he's just shown that he can be bought. And it's outrageous that an African nation would think to treat other human beings like commodity. And that's what this is about. Let's be clear about this. This is about essentially saying that we'll take money for people, and we'll offshore your immigration. And we could spend a long time talking about this, but that unfortunately is part of the problem. This happened in Jamaica, unfortunately, when Cameron was Prime Minister, and he made a deal where he would send back prisoners of Jamaican heritage in the UK for the cost of building some prisons in Jamaica. And we're always going to find leaders, some neo-colonial puppets who actually work in the interest of Britain and against their own people, whether their own citizens in their own nations. We'll move on to the next story, and unfortunately this one deals with a theme that you're probably, I don't know, it's been distressing just to hear this word safeguarding. And I'm going to be honest with you, I never really considered safeguarding before Child Q story. You heard the word, and you can't really understand what it meant. Well, I didn't anyway. I kind of had a gist of looking after the well-being of children. But now, because of Child Q, I'm finding out more and more and seeing that our children are being failed by many of these systems. And in this particular case, Kimani Robson was murdered by his mother and her partner in 2018. There's been an investigation that said there was no prior safeguarding concerns, so they couldn't detect this was going to happen. And I'm not casting any situation. There is something wrong. I mean, if you read this case about the injuries that were suffered by Kimani, this is a 3-year-old child, it was beaten up, hit by a car, all over his chest. It was a disgusting, traumatic, tragic case. I can't imagine the terror that our baby boy went through. So there is something wrong in this country when it comes to safeguarding children. I'm not just saying it's African children, because that would be fair. But there is something about the fact that African children, as we found in Child Q, tend to be, I don't like saying things about a fact, it's just an instinct. There's kind of like, there seems to be, when we hear about these cases, they are so horrific, they are so, to us, obvious when we find the details, it's surprising that there are countries. It makes you wonder.
Okay, I think it's me. The sound was echoing, so I've just muted myself. I think that must have been me.
Okay, so hopefully the sound is audio's discorded. Thank you for that. Is the sound okay now, or is it still distorted? It'd be good if I can get some feedback on that one. Sister Oleander's muted her mic, so we don't know if it's happened with her laptop being open. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but please let us know if the problem has been resolved. Okay, that's better. Okay, that's fine. So we'll keep going, and thank you for that feedback. I'm going to move on to another story, and this is really one of and I'm laughing because I don't know what else to do. This is a story that came out, I read this week, about a police officer who stopped he didn't fit the bill, so he found out some other reason, stopped his car. Then he did a search with the Home Office to find out if he was an immigrant. That didn't fail. And then there was this whole scenario where he said, look, he took off his belt, he turned off his camera and said, look, you want to fight? You want to fight? This is the police officer. Now this officer was warned. That was it. That's the disciplinary action that took place. And the young man who doesn't want to be identified is kind of said, like, it's just shaking him up a little bit, and he doesn't understand why it had to be like this. It's difficult without more details on this, but what I want to highlight is the fact that the officer knew to turn off his camera is quite important, because you see there were other officers around at the same time, And I think that the moment an officer sees another officer turn off their camera when they're engaged in a stop encounter, that things that needs to be a recommendation from legality to the police to sort out. But this is what took place anyway. So I just thought it's interesting that you would know this, because it's safeguarding Durrani, who's 3 years old. This is a young Somali boy in the street, a young man. I shouldn't say boy. I think he was a young man who's facing these kind of scenarios with police officers. And I think a verbal warning doesn't really quite cut it. This could have gone really, really bad. And why this matters is because the IOPC, which the independent Office of Police Conduct, it's supposed to be independent, issued a report looking at stop and search, because the Metropolitan Police have been going through it. They're being exposed now. They can't hide the corruption. They can't hide the racism. And so this report came out. And for the IOPC, if I'm going to be really honest, it was what we would call hard hitting, right? It called for reform. It talks about a culture of racism, or culture to kind of honest enough, but it did recognize this being a problem. It also revealed a story about a young teenager who, between the ages of 14 to 16, had been stopped and searched over 60 times in 2 years. And so, there is a serious cultural problem in the police, but there's also a serious bureaucratic failings inside the police where this can happen. They did issue a whole load of recommendations. I'm not going to go through them. Some of them to do with the National Police College of Policing, having some more protocols. There's some to do more research into the situation. And the one I found more interesting was kind of like similar to what I was just saying before, where there's a suggestion that officers who see other officers engaging in misconduct during a stop and search should actually say something, or they should watch out for it or report it and stuff like that. It's all a bit loose, but for the IOPC, and bearing in mind that acting corrupt police, that's why, or coppers, that's what I used to call it, and now the IOPC. So it comes from this history of police officers investigating police officers corruptly and without any efficiency. This was probably the most progressive report we've seen from them for a long time. Would it change anything? Well, we'll see about that. I doubt it. But I thought it was important to share this with you. Now I'm going to move away from police matters, and I want to talk about, just for a short time, I want you to look at this headline here. And I mean, this is a story about an explosion that killed over 100 people at an oil refining depot in Nigeria, Imo State. And it's quite a horrific story. Authorities have said that victims were burnt beyond recognition. But I don't know if you can see the sideline on. I mean, I placed a copy of the article, the same story, in the Daily Mail, and I know it's a bit truncated. And exploiters. Reuters is a news agency that gathers it and shares it with everyone else. And I don't have much about the story other than what you see in those newspapers. But the reason why I put the Daily Mail on here is because in fact, I should have contrasted it with something like The Guardian. The Guardian wasn't that much better. The reason I put the Daily Mail here is because the focus for the right-wing papers wasn't about the 100 people who'd lost their lives. There's no talk about their names, their families, or anything. So I have no idea who they were. I have no idea, kind of like, what was the impact on their family, but nothing. All we hear in those stories, and this is what really legality was set up to deal with, media misrepresentation and the disrespect in the media. All they focus on is what they call illegal oil refining. And this is where people kind of like siphon off oil from pipelines, and they talk about the loss of revenue. And like I said, it was really what legality was set up to deal with. There's kind of like this subtlety where human lives are devalued, where we can't even see the names of the people. We can't hear any testimony from anyone that was there. And I'm sure there'd be excuses. It was from Reuters. We didn't have access. But I'm pretty sure that if 100 people died and were burnt beyond recognition in France, we would see their faces on the newspaper within the next following days. This story has been buried. I don't even know if it's actually been on TV. I haven't seen it. So anyway, I thought I would share that because that's something that we're going through, and we often don't really think about kind of like how the news is reported in the mainstream impacts on how we are devalued and dehumanized in the national media. And talking about dehumanization, this is a bizarre story. It's very short again, not had much information on it. Often to know that John Yems, he's the 60-year-old or 62 language. Now, the board who suspended him said that's quite a compelling argument. They have every reason to believe that, they're right to suspend him. We don't know what he said, the context of what he said. But what's quite remarkable about this is that, the racist language he used wasn't to the opposition who were playing and maybe defeated his team, but towards his own players. I mean, again, it's this idea of being safe and where are we safe if the person who's in charge of your team is also being racist? This is a common theme if you think about what I explained with the NEU earlier. So anyway, that's that news, that story. So just as a quick aside, you're watching me, Toyin Agbetu. I'm in the studio with the lovely sister Oleander. Hopefully her screen's there. Oops, okay, I shouldn't do that. I'll check in future. Lovely. Go back to the other screen. It's not working. That's brilliant. So we're stuck. Oh, it is working now. Okay, and we're just going over the news over the last 2 weeks. Now, hopefully that gave you a little bit of joke. This one will now bring you back down, because I don't know if you remember the story of Paul Busetti. I know we spoke about this. This might have been a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if we did it on the Grenfell Media Watch. I think it was on Grenfell Media Watch as opposed to doing it on this particular format and channel. But basically, he was the I think he's an estate agent. I can't remember, but he was caught sharing this sick effigy of the Grenfell Tower, and they burn it on fire with his mates and making jokes. I mean, one of the things he said was that, yeah, that's what happens when you don't pay the rent. And if you remember the case, and if you don't, I'll give you a background. What happened? Just people in the effigy were his mates, they were his friends, and so it wasn't meant to be racist. Anyway, what happened was that he got off. The magistrates kind of like found him not guilty, and he got away with it. But thankfully, it went to the High Court. The High Court overturned that decision. And this is one of the problems about magistrates' court. When I was growing up, we used to call magistrates' courts police courts, because it's very, very difficult to come out of a magistrate's court if you're innocent with a just outcome, because magistrates tend to believe what the police said. Even if they were so clearly and outrageously lying, the magistrates would always fall in line with the police. It's kind of like when you watch Judge Judy. If you watch Judge Judy, and that deference to the authority of the police, like what happened with Charles Q, as if they were always right. So anyway, this was a remarkable situation where the High Court said no, and they overturned it. As soon as they overturned it, and when they went to re-prosecute him, surprise, surprise, he pled guilty. He pled guilty to sharing a grossly offensive video. Now, he didn't make the effigy. Let's be clear about that. I'm not even sure if he made the video, but he shared it. And and the comments that have been, I told you about the one about that's what I'm doing, paying rent. I'm not going to go through the other ones. So I think he was spared jail. I'm getting conflicted at the article that I just read now, so that he was spared jail. Another one I read, I thought he had a couple of weeks, so I'm not 100% sure on that one. But this was the recent article I read. It shared jail. But again, I just wanted to kind of like give you an idea of what's going on, even though this case took some time ago. The relevance with this particular story is that none of the politicians, none of them who have been involved in deregulation, in enabling profit before people policies to put flammable cladding on Grenfell, which led to the but we also had to be mindful that we're not distracted from the bigger picture. And this is what inquiries do, right? You know, the inquiries take years. You're seeing a perfect use of inquiry by the current Prime Minister. So now, you know, there's something that he would have gone down for, but what he's done, he's got the Sue Gray inquiry, he's got the police investigation, and now they've got the Commons inquiry. And so they can actually stall from talking about anything until those 3 inquiries are finished. That will probably be like, you know, a year or 2. And by then, he'll be out of danger. That's the stalling tactic. They call it kicking it into the long grass. So this is the thing that we need to be watchful, mindful for. It's good that he was, you know, he pled guilty. It's good that, you know, he's going to be convicted, but the right people aren't being convicted. A sad story. That's update. Something that we talk about every single week is there are 2 teenage boys, 16-year-old Amadou from Greenwich in southeast London, and the 13-year-old Andy Litulubi from the New Southgate area. I don't have much information. These are just police alerts that have been shared with us by you, our amazing community and research teams. But if anyone sees these 2 young children, please contact the authorities. They've been gone now for a couple of weeks, and their families are quite worried and concerned. This missing children's issue is, you know, I'm quite scared. You know, like I said, I think when we started this program, we only then started to find out about how often and how frequently our children go missing. Yeah, just be cognizant of this. Okay, so let's do, and that's of institutions in the UK, one by one, slowly coming up and owning up to their complicity in the Ma'afa. And the latest organisation or institution to own up to its complicity is the Bank of England. It's hosting a exhibition at its museum in I think, is it Cheadle Street or Ferrabelt Street? Is it the Bank of England Museum? Just, you can find it on Google. I can remember where it is. And what they've actually revealed now is that the Bank of England held at least almost 600 enslaved Africans captive in the 1700s, early 1800s. This is before abolition, so there's no doubt that they were complicit. You know, there's this wibble wobble argument that, you know, property was shifted, so, you know, the plant, the forced labor camp was owned by someone. It passed into the ownership of the bank. The bank just kept it, made profit off it, financed it. And so I think they're trying to argue that even though they did profit from it, and even though they did fund it, they weren't instigators of it. But there was also the policy of underwriting enslavement and the torturing and the deaths and the murder of African people. So the bank is fully implicit in this. And so this story has just come out. You can go to the Bank of England. The exhibition's free. I'm still in 2 minds whether I'm going to go and actually check it out. I'm a museum nerd, but these things really kind of like make me angry at the same time. I suppose I know in my heart I'm going to have to go, but it's an exhibition that reveals the role of the Bank of England.
Sorry. I just wanted to say that I find it really rich, them saying they are benefiting from it. It's like saying, oh, I know that person over there who stole that watch from someone, and they actually gave me the watch. Am I not the one actually holding on to stolen goods?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, this has always been a long argument, isn't it? It's like, we didn't directly benefit, or, we're not responsible. But there are laws against these things. People know receipt of stolen property. I mean, these are fake moral arguments. These are fake, kind of like, I can't say, because they're not justifications. They're just fake arguments to justify an unjustifiable position. And so, I mean, the bank has actually come clean, which is a good thing. It hasn't spoke about reparations, not as far as I know. Until I go through the exhibition, I'll see what they're saying. But I've not heard anything about reparations. So we'll see where it goes. This is a step forward. There's a reason why this is actually just suddenly it'd be nice to think that they would do the right thing to do. But I think there's a trend for them to kind of like bury this news really quickly and control the narrative before we find out the things that actually come on, and then they can't handle it. So let me move on to the next slide. And this, the reason I'm saying this is that here's a story about the bank ABN AMRO. I was unaware of this bank. It's a Dutch bank, and they are apologising for their historical links to enslavement, Dutch enslavement of African people. And ABN AMRO, this is all new to me, so I'm still learning. They were owned by, or they used to be owned by Lloyd's, and Lloyd's was NatWest. So there is this direct connection between the bank. I find it incredibly it's an amazing coincidence that two banks at the same time, or roughly the same time, are owning up to their historical links to Ma'afa, to their complicitness. There's something, it's just too coincidental. And so I suspect that this is, again, the same way that the current Prime Minister uses inquiries to bury, they call it burying bad news. There's something here, there's something going on that I think that we're not privy to. But, I'll share the story. You might want to check into that. The ABN AMRO bank, they've apologized. I haven't read the apology. I just read the news article about it in The Guardian. But yes, keep an eye out. I think this is going to be a time when a lot of institutions sneak out their mealy-mouthed apologies while saying nothing on the issue of reparations. And in reparations, I think I have to talk about the Windsor Families. This is the phrase that Antigua and the Barbuda Reparation Support Commission use. The goodwill don't leave us tour. That's what they call it. Has made. They've issued this open letter again. Or this, I don't know if it's an open letter. Be clear with that. They've issued a letter to the House of Windsor. And you can read it online. One of our amazing journalists, it's on her Twitter page, and I placed it up here. And it just talks about, when you come to the Caribbean, don't come telling us that no one was alive at the time, it was legal at the time, all this kind of nonsense. We don't need to hear that. You said it before. We don't need to hear it anymore. It's like, we know what you're here for. Don't come shaking our hands and smiling in our face and then disrespecting us. And it's really, for me, it's amazing to be at that time, to be alive at a time when I'm seeing an end to this. I put the image of Dr. Sholomos Shogba Mimi, and I apologize, my dear sister, if I've mispronounced your name. She went on one of these daytime TVs, this Jeremy Vine nonsense, and she brought fire to them. And you could see the discomfort the moment she talked about white supremacy. They tried to shut her down. Sister was just talking truth, and as the only African in that studio on that day, they just completely try to shut her down and keep drawing on that narrative about African women. Same thing what happened with the school, being aggressive. Well, she was right. In fact, no, she was more than right. She was being righteous. Now, I know, and this is probably going to get me into some trouble with some of you, I know there are some of us in our community who think that Africans with continental heritage, like myself, because issue of enslavement. I would like to have the time to give you a lesson if you think that those of us who with direct continental heritage are deeply emotionally connected, not spiritually and politically, to the history of enslavement, because that's our family that was kidnapped. People kind of often forget that. People forget that colonialism happened immediately. It's another form of enslavement. It was just a process being reinvented. But I personally, and I would say this, I think, I big her up for speaking on these issues, the same way I big up our people in the Caribbean who are actually starting to think, no, we can't let these Windsors walk around. Someone called, what do they call the Edward boy? Prince Colonialism. They called him, was it Prince Colonialism? Yeah, they can't let them walk by smiling, taking photo opportunities because of the celebration of some monarch that wouldn't spit on them if they were on fire. So anyway, this is what's going on, and the story is developing even more than it's not a long story. And what's happened, it's been led from the grassroots in the Caribbean, and often what's happened, apart from what happened in Barbados, is that it's been the middle class in the Caribbean who actually squashed it. But now we are in a situation where we have even the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, PJ Patterson, retiring from the British monarch's Privy Council and actually making statements saying that, look, we've got national consensus now that the next head of state for our nation must be a Jamaican. Now, this is just plain common sense. But, the people were saying this. People were saying this for time. But now there's a really good chance of this happening when you have not just the grassroots making these claims, making these proclamations, but you also have the elite. And unfortunately, we do have an elite that's out of touch in our diasporic homelands. Who are now that I'm going to big up. But on the same topic, and I should say St. Lucia, and I would say that my wife from St. Lucia, St. Lucia's also, and Grenada, big yourselves up. They're also kind of bringing the fire. So they think that they're going to come over and just kind of like do a little whitewash thing. It's not going to work like that this time. Anyway, sorry. In the UK, I think we covered this story. We still are struggling with some of the churches. I spoke about how the Archbishop spoke against the sending them back to Rwanda plan, but the Church of England is being very silent. In fact, it's not being more than silent, it's being very resistant and oppositional to removing symbols of that celebrate enslavement at the Jesus College in Cambridge. And so Senator Ali he's written, his students have got to come into this place. And as we're there, doing our thing, praying, what's happening is that you've got this icon, this memorial to a slaver, kind of like lording it over us, even from the beyond. I think the term would be like a vicious little duppy. So, this is an ongoing story, and hopefully it will have a positive ending. But right now, it's not looking so good. It doesn't have to be that way, because in Stroud City, the council has actually finally decided to remove what they call the Black Boy a statue, which is this ridiculous caricature of an African child with bright red lips and a club, which is attached to this clock tower. And it's been in the city for over 240 years. The fact that it's going to go. I'm thankful for the fact that they did a consultation in Stroud, and they, I think it was something like over 70% of the people, I'm pretty sure it was over 70, yeah, it's around 74% of the people said it's got to go. Now, of course, the politician in the area is kicking up noise. saying that, well, this isn't going to change racism, we should just leave it alone. But of course, the politician in Stroud is a conservative. So, that probably shouldn't surprise you that you're going to get that kind of response. So anyway, that's what's taking place. And so that statue, looks like it's going to come down. And I want to give you an example of how things can be, because you see, that's what we'd call in Stroud art of the worst kind in the public realm. That in Cambridge, kind of like memorials of the worst kind in the public realm, doing no good to community cohesion, to making anyone in Hackney is an amazing. This is like a third iteration of it. This is a community art project by Future Hackney, and they're actively celebrating generations of the African presence in the neighborhood. We're in Hackney right now. That's where we're broadcasting from. Now, the co-founders, Wayne Critchlow and Donna Travis, have launched a GoFundMe page. They're looking to find, I think it's £2,000, so they can do this aerial recording of the art going up. And I've walked past the arches when the art's been there, and I'm telling you, it's beautiful. It makes you feel something. You feel like, you belong, like, you are a part of Hackney. Of course, they take these things down, which is part of the problem. But while they're there, I think the last one was supported by the Red Cross and someone, I can't remember who else it was. While they're there, there's a sense that, what I mean? It's like, this is not just a temporary thing that we've been here. They don't, the co-founders don't like to use the word gentrification. I don't know. It kind of reminds you that, we have survived successive waves of gentrification, and we will continue to do so. That's why the generational theme in this community art project is so important. Okay, now you're listening to myself. I'm going to put Sister Oleander on the screen again. Hopefully, yes, there you go. I'm waving. You listen to myself, Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu, Sister Oleander. We're going through the Pan-African News Program. I don't know how we're doing for time. It's quite a lot of news. I'm trying to do them in under an hour, the whole program. So I won't rabbit as much. But this is the section.
10 minutes.
You say we've got 10 minutes. Okay, that's going to be a little bit tricky. So hold on, let me move the slide. So this is the section we call community reviews. Let's see if that's going to come up. Yes. The first, it's not a review because I haven't seen it. So it's the first cultural program or cultural activity that's out there for you to attend, is a play called Daddy at the Almeida Theatre. And they're hosting what's called a blackout performance. Now, I've not heard of this. This is something the director of the play has imported from America. And it's where the theatre says that the seats are really reserved for people of African heritage. And so they try to have, not all the performances, just a couple of performances. I looked on their website, and there seems to just be one performance on this particular show. There might be more, but you can actually book a ticket on a particular day. And the space is supposed to be reserved for African audiences. Of course, there's going to be some rednecks who will be saying, "Oh, it's racist," and so the theatre is quite cleverly and quite, put down that the whole idea is that the only people who come to these performances are African people. And that's why it's called the blackout performance. I haven't heard much about the play. I tried to get a synopsis. So I'm not going to mangle it now because I kind of read it, but it still didn't kind of ring in. So I'll check it out. I might even see if it's, if it's something that myself and the Queen would check out. But again, this idea of a blackout performance, an intriguing one. We'll see how that goes. There are times when I've been to certain plays where I think that having an African-only audience would allow a certain level of intimacy, a certain level of robustness with the discussions, where we wouldn't have to feel vulnerable of exposing some of our weaknesses, but yet we have a public space to discuss them. It's a very complex matter because I'm not into censorship. So I'm interested to see how this goes. Obviously, the newspapers, or some newspapers, the right-wing newspapers, are saying it's divided. Um, the next play is one that I have seen. Sister Oleander and I went to see. This was called For Black Boys Who Have Considered Suicide When the Hue Gets Too Heavy. Thank you, Lara. She recommended it to us. So we went, I think was it a week ago? It was a week or two ago? Yeah, of course it was my birthday week. It was my Earth Day last week, by the way. So yeah, we went just before then. And actually it was a great play. It was, again, it had, it dealt with some of the most important themes that happens to Africans in the UK, African men in the UK, specifically about African men, kind of the challenges we face with parenthood, with racism, with toxic masculinity, all the kind of issues that are there, suicide, clearly. It's quite emotional. The only thing I would say is that while I loved the intention, I loved the amazing performances, and I tend to walk out of things that use the N word. I just don't need to hear it. And there was a part of the play which it was just too much for me, and and I didn't like it. And so that there was that part. And then some of the jokes, some of the cultural references are for people who are a little bit younger than me. I've just turned 55, and I think these are for some of the 90s babies. These are, they're just a bit, I kind of, some of the music references weren't quite for me. But other than that, it was amazing. In fact, I like Sister Oleander. I don't know how you feel about the play, because I know that I can be quite,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it was very entertaining, and I did the music was, some of it was really good, and I do think the references were a little bit difficult to swallow with the N word. Quite a few issues and emotions. It took us through all the possible emotions of what people can go through. And I mean, I don't really want to say too much in case people want to go and see it, but yeah, you do get through a lot of emotions and things that can happen, that you can imagine what might happen to a young man.
Okay, thank you, Sister Oleander. It's running until the 7th of May. So if you're interested, please check it out. Now, the next story came from, again, one of our researchers, and thank you for this one. And they made a really excellent point. And this is with all the negative news that's been going out about our filmmakers and the movie industry. We forget about the positivity that's taking place. And this is like the 30th Pan-African Film and Arts Festival, which is still running. Unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately because I can't get there, not this week. But it has launched some amazing films, talent, networks, organizations, and it still continues to run strong. And I think we sometimes forget this. In fact, seeing this and going through their website again, and it just made me miss getting back into my filmmaking role, which is something that I miss. It's one of the downsides. I say the downside, but one of the challenges when you are an activist, you have to give up kind of like the creative sides if you do it full time, and it's something I'm starting to struggle with, if I'm going to be honest with you. But it's great to know that the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival is still running, and those of you who are lucky to be able to get over there, please go. And remember with this program as well, I keep forgetting about this, we do have the technology now to invite guests onto the program to be a producer. But once we have a little bit of a smaller team, or a bigger team, a few of us, then that should be doable. And then people, yourselves could give us reviews of events that you've seen. It doesn't have to just be my big mouth opinion. Okay, let me whiz through, because I know we've still got a few more slides to talk about, and 5 minutes just to do it in. So if you have the opportunity, then I would recommend that you, oops, sorry, I the wrong button for a second. This is the reason why we need a producer as well. I'd recommend you check out Celebrating Bill Gilroy exhibition at the British Library. And it's going to run until the 26th of June 2022. I, again, just found out about this, so I'm going to be there next week. For those of you who don't know, this was an amazing woman, a teacher, a psychotherapist, head teacher. Like I said, I'm a bit of a museum nerd, archivist, nerd. I want to see everything, read everything. So please, you're free to check it out. It's on Euston Road. I think the exhibition's free as well, so there's no excuse. Amazing story, and we need to know about our contributions. It's not all doom and gloom. That's one of the things I always worry about, the balance with this program, making sure it's not all doom and gloom. We kind of like celebrate the amazing work that takes place from us, and it doesn't all have to come from the Americas. I love our American family, but there's a limit to how much you can import the stories of the civil rights without making reference to those of us in the UK. Okay, and so what else can we do? This is the kind of like the cultural review. Well, I think is how you pronounce it. And this was a restaurant that was launched. I think it was launched during lockdown, but I know if it wasn't launched during lockdown, I remember reading that it had serious challenges during lockdown, but they persevered and have come out on top and have been named Time Out's best restaurant of 2022. So they're based in Brixton Market.
We need to go there, definitely.
Did you hear my wife? We need to go there. Yeah, so they're based in Brixton Market. I think is it Cold Harbour Lane? Is it Cold Harbour Lane? Yeah, Cold Harbour Lane. We'll go there. We'll check it out. Apparently she's got this open kitchen. So part of the allure of the space is not just the amazing food, but actually just seeing her prepare while you're there and getting the ambience and feel there. So as long as she's got vegetarian options, because but I'm sure she has. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to drop by. I just had to make sure I don't get a nosebleed as I cross South London, but I saved her. She lives in Hackney now. But yes, big up and congratulations. Okay, what's the next story? So the next story is well, it's not a story. It's about a conference that's taking place, and I'm sharing details about it a little bit early. It's about the history of sickle cell and race. And when we say race, I suspect we mean racism in the NHS. It's taking place on the 21st of June between 6 and 7:30. And it's been organised by the Royal College of Nursing. They've got an Eventbrite page. So if you have an opportunity, book for it now. It looks like it's going to be online. Well, that's what it says so far. Hopefully by June, there might be a hybrid option. But right now it's online only. But many people are unaware of the history of sickle cell, how long it's been known and misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed. Yeah, so I'll just giving you a heads up on this now. If you have an opportunity, it's something that I recommend that you check out. And then the next one is kind of like in-house. This is like housekeeping, I suppose. For those of you who are watching, who are part of the Child Q Community Action Group, we have our meeting tomorrow at the usual place between 6 and 8:30. No, I haven't done the slides yet. It's sure they're done. We are going to be hybrid. So, those of you who have registered, you'll be able to join online like we did at the last meeting. And but of course, we love it when you actually turn up in person as well. There has been quite a few developments This is for those of you who don't know, this is the community action group that garden. We have an amazing array of parents, teachers, residents, ex-governors. We all come together and we're all slowly working to put together a system to ensure that what happened to child Q can never happen again to one of our other children. It's not the most glamorous of work, but we've got amazing people doing it. If I sound exhausted, it's because yes, it is tiring, but it's the right thing to do. It's not a protest, it's just work. So the meeting's tomorrow, and I thank you for putting up with my doing of the housekeeping in this session. Okay, so this is the last part of our program, which is my favorite part, which we call community champions. And I think we're going to start off with some of you will know, some of you who don't know should know, but with the dedicated has been a steward in our community for as long as I've known, far longer than I have been. And it's his Earth Day, and there's going to be an evening celebration on the 17th of June for him. Some of you will be aware that he has had some health issues. He had a stroke, to be blunt with you, and he is recovering, but it is a struggle. So the evening is both a celebration and a fundraiser for him. So if you are in Birmingham or nearby, please attend. Even if you are in London, it's it's the 17th of June, so there's enough time to arrange to get up there. But I just wanted to put this inside here because he is a community champion, and I remember learning about a few of our elders in America to life when they were ill and when they were facing challenges financially, that they almost passed away in poverty, despite us leaning on them, using their works, quoting them, making memes of them. And there's something that doesn't sit right with my spirit with that. So, if you can contribute, please do. If you can attend, please do. But it's really important that we don't just rely on their work while they're healthy and while they're here, and then just kind of like sideline and move on to the next big bright thing, when it's convenient. We are a community, we are a village. And as much as, the last couple of slides were talking about taking care of our children with safeguarding, we also need to do the same with our elders. But what I will say, that there are some amazing people in our community doing some fantastic work. And I'm going to start again with a teacher in Bristol called Tanisha Hicks Beresford. And she's adding what she calls black joy to her classes. And so she has been involved in decolonizing the curriculum type of work and stuff, and kind of like, breaking down some of the history of African people for her students. But she's quite careful and quite determined to ensure that her students don't just leave feeling traumatized. They don't just leave feeling depressed, but they actually feel uplifted, that they learn about the positives of our community. And that's a really important thing. So I just wanted to say, big yourself up, Tanisha. You are a community champion.
Okay. So we have security for the PACM, and I was a security officer in the London branch. Vinny is a legend and walking piece of Black history and one of the founders of Black self-defense movement in the UK. Big up yourself, Vinny.
Oh, thank you. And this is, thank you. I really appreciate that, Brother Perry, for you sharing that as well, because this is the thing, these histories we don't know about. it's not in the interest of the state to tell us these things. And often what happens is that we tend to kind of like find out when people have passed away. So, I mean, thank you for those sharing that testimony. And, and again, it's part of our culture to do this. There is no other way. Talking about legend and talking about defense in our community, another person that's still with us that we need to big up and celebrate is the elder Linton. I have a bit of a, what do you call it, a fanboy moment with him when I was at a memorial for Kelso Cochrane, and he sat next to me, and I just loved this elder's work from time, like mad respect. And I wanted to say something, and when your mouth is just dry and you don't know what to say, and so I'm like, I really respect you, brother. You know what I mean? And I still feel foolish to this day that that's the only thing I can think to say about his works. But I listen to his tunes, I quote them in my works. It's like, it's amazing. Anyway, there's going to be a festival, a rebel music festival, a celebration of Lewisham activist history, and it's going to be told through the power of music and the sound systems. So he's going to be speaking at the Albany in Lewisham. And if you have an opportunity to go, please go. I realize I haven't put the date here, so it's a bit me being a bit absent-minded, but I know it's coming soon. So that culture of resistance to racism. And it should be an amazing session. And that particular interview is one I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping I'm going to be free to attend on that particular day. Okay, let me move.
Okay, so we have a message from Amma. I also went to see the play and overall rated it as very powerful. I think that must be the play we were speaking about earlier.
For Black boys, when Black boys, when the hue gets too heavy, for Black boys who consider suicide when the hue gets too heavy. Thank you, Sister Amma. Yes, it was very, very powerful. They hit all the main issues that address us as a community, and they were amazing. I mean, there's nothing else. It was good to have those issues articulated in such a form.
The young actors gave very powerful performances.
Oh yeah, they were off the hook. They were superb. Yes, no, thank you for that. Now, the last couple of slides, talking about art and powerful performances. This one sounds really simple. This is by a young Nigerian medical student called Chidibere Ibi, and his work is, I mean, all he's done, I say all he has done, is depicted an African child in the womb during the third trimester, and it's just causing a storm. People are like, some people are like, this is beautiful, this is amazing, and others like, why are you doing that for? It's racist. Rah, 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 rah. I mean, but one of the things that this work does is that it exposes. It really, I mean, we're going to, if you get a chance to see the sickle cell thing I was talking about, please do that. But this exposes how we've normalized practices of medical racism, and just having it being can be seen as something controversial. And it shows you that, this is probably not time to talk about this, but most of the medical practices, most of the sciences that deal with physiology, that deals with health, are calibrated and designed around Eurocentric values. This is what happened to Child Q when you talk about adultification, where an innocent child, or the blueprint of an innocent child, isn't an African child, is a European child. It's the same thing. This goes all the way back to when we're even in the womb. The representations of a baby, a normal baby is not seen as African. A normal baby is still seen as European. And so just this simple expression of art with the illustration is something that I think that this young medical student should be bigged up as a community champion, because it just shows that actually we can think outside those cultural traps that we've been born into, that we've been socialized into. And we need to have more confidence to do this. This is not any form of racism, despite what the critics say. This is a lovely story. This is the one of a mother called Catherine Boake. I think it's Ghanaian. She basically set up an organization called Mango Tree Kids, and she registered it, but she didn't set up a trademark. And so the giant retailer Mango started contacted her and started saying, well, hold on, what are you talking about? You can't use Mango Tree Kids. It's the same as Mango Kids, or the same as us. And she's like, no, we're not even in the same industry. I'm doing products that have African themed children's parties, educational resources. This has got nothing to do with what you're doing. And so they sent all their lawyers at her. She was stressed. She didn't know what to do. And she says, you know what? I'm going to fight this. And lo and behold, she fought it and she won. Years before they'd even trademarked this, she won. And now she is going to continue doing what she does. She's even planning to actually move into a little bit of clothing as well, African themed clothing. But I just felt it was important just to land with this story, just to remind us that actually, we often think that, we just can't win, that, everyone against us is so well resourced that even when we're in the right, we're going to lose. And I just thought this is a true community champion, because she was right. I don't do wrong and strong, and she didn't do wrong and strong. She was right and righteous. And I'm not saying that we always win. We don't. I took City Hall to court for a judicial review. I haven't had a chance to write a newsletter. And before I can even get my day in court, the judge says that no, they're not going to fight. I was prepared for that fight. Sometimes we don't even get that far. But in this particular case, I say young, I mean, I'm 55, she's 52. So a young mother setting up a business to help our children, to help our families, takes a giant to court, wins the case. And I think that's a cause for celebration.
So definitely is a cause for celebration, because being in any kind of industry where that it's hard to succeed at it, and the fact that she believed in herself and she believed in her product is a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
really lovely. Also, M Green has said that is beautiful. I think he's talking about the baby in the womb, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure which one, if it's the baby in the womb. I'm not even sure the M is a he or a she, but thank you for the comment. You might have to let to kind of like move forward. We mustn't give up. We must never accept this idea and this kind of like this kind of notion that we can't win. That's what we're always being taught, that we can't win. And that really isn't the truth. So I'm looking at the time now. And I think we've just hit the last slide. So, I think we're 15 minutes over. Wow. See, so that's like, that's 35 news stories. So, I think we're going to have to cut them down to like 20. We're going to have to work. It's going to be hard because they all seem relevant. Give us some feedback, actually. Give us some feedback about which stories maybe we should pull back on which. I know it's difficult, but I think it's really important to do the positive ones as well. And I like to close on a positive. And I know that takes us over our time a little bit, but I don't think it's good just to keep hearing bad news and just so the Queen's up here.
Sorry, M Green said I was talking. Oops, I'm on mute. Sorry. M Green said I was talking about the art. I'm a black woman.
Give thanks. No, I appreciate that, sis. And yeah, it was, wasn't it? Just something so natural, so beautiful, and it's so obvious. And yes, it was beautiful. And I'm a big fan of it. Many of you who know that I support the use of art just to help us to recalibrate and boost our confidence and how we think when we're dealing with white supremacy. But yes, we're here. This is probably going to be the last time you see us in this particular space, because we're moving yet again. So I'm hopeful that we'll be back in 2 weeks' time as usual. Might have to be broadcasting from my mobile phone, so please, if you know, it might be a bit rough. If we can't make it, please forgive us. We'll be to put something on there. And so, as ever, let me just put on that slide. I want to thank you. I want to thank our brother Colin, our researchers, our supporters. Sorry, Sister Oleander.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's cool.
There's another message from BCESG UK. Greetings, Brother Toyin. Can we know when your next presentation is taking place so we can share the link with sisters and brothers in our networks?
Give thanks and appreciate you offering the support. We normally do this every fortnight, so it'll be 2 weeks from now, from 7 o'clock to, I was going to say till 8, but unfortunately, as you can see, it tends to go to 8:15. It might mean that the program is begging to be 90 minutes instead of 60 minutes. We'll see, but yes. So 2 weeks time. The only thing is that the next program, we're going to have to recalibrate everything, and that might mean that I can't even be more. I can't even give more definite commitment than that right now, because literally it's going to be a new place, and until I, as a family, we're in it and we're packed and everything like that, and unpacked. I don't know what we'll have. But even when we was in the hotel, we ran it from our laptops. So we're trying and get online in 2 weeks' time, but it just might be a little bit messy tech-wise. So again, thank you all for your support, your contribution. We couldn't do this without you. Literally, we can't do this without you. And I want to say, as ever, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.